Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to unpack a chilling 1990s incident from a remote farmhouse in Haryana, and let me tell you, it proves without a shadow of a doubt that reality is often way more terrifying than anything supernatural. If you think you know exactly how a standard ghost story plays out, well, prepare to have those expectations completely shattered.
Now you might be wondering, what could possibly be more terrifying than a ghost? I mean, usually scary stories involve a creepy old house, strange noises, and some sort of supernatural entity that goes bump in the night, right? But the entity in today's source material is something entirely different. It's something we've literally all encountered in the real world, and it's far, far more sinister than any phantom.
Part 1. The Haunted Farmhouse. Let's set the stage here. This whole thing goes down in the 1990s at a sprawling, isolated property quietly situated between Sonipat and Panipat. There are three key players you need to keep in mind. First, we have the owner, Raghav Malik. He's a wealthy Delhi businessman who used the farm as a quiet getaway. And this is absolutely crucial. He's a heart patient who barely survived a severe heart attack in the past. Then, there's his wife, Mohini, who lives with him back in Delhi. And finally, we have Raju. Raju is the highly trusted caretaker who had been managing this farmhouse since he was just 20 years old. Over the last decade, Raju had been so flawlessly loyal that Raghav literally never had a single reason to doubt him.
Okay, here's where things get really tense. A literal ticking clock was set into motion when Raghav got a notice from the local electricity department warning about a total power shutdown. From 9 p.m. until 3 a.m., the entire area would have absolutely zero electricity. So, anticipating being stranded in pitch darkness, Raghav sends his trusty caretaker, Raju, out to the city with a wad of cash to grab some emergency lights and lanterns.
Part 2. The Caretaker's Terror.
So, Raghav happens to be away on a business trip in Mumbai when he suddenly gets a panicked phone call from Raju. Raju hadn't made it back with the supplies on time, and when he finally called, the poor guy was in a state of absolute, unadulterated terror. He reported what sounds like a classic, terrifying escalation of supernatural dread. He told Raghav that when he walked back from the market, he felt this unseen presence walking right beside him at the gate. Later on, while he was eating, he swore he saw someone laughing at him through the window. And then, the very second the power cut hit, he fumbled to turn on one of the new emergency lights, only to illuminate a horrifying headless woman standing right next to him.
To give you an idea of the sheer panic Raju was in, he practically begged Raghava over the phone to come save him, saying, "My breath is failing and I feel like death is standing right in front of me." He was so terrified that he completely abandoned the main house, deciding he'd rather spend the entire pitch-black night shivering out in the barn with the livestock.
Part 3. The Midnight Encounters.
Obviously alarmed by this crazy call, Raghav books a flight back to Delhi, grabs his car, and rushes straight to the farmhouse. He pulls up around 5:30 p.m. to this eerie, dead silence, and finds his loyal caretaker trembling in the corner of the barn. Naturally, Raghav tries to calm him down, dismissing all these fears as just overactive imagination. He hands Raju a glass of water, trying to get to the bottom of it. But the terror suddenly becomes contagious when Roger just stares blankly over his boss's shoulder and says he is standing right behind you. Raghav whips around, but of course, there's nothing there.
Figuring Raju had simply cracked under stress, Raghav leaves him be, heads into the house alone, takes a shower, and gets ready for bed. He empties his pockets, tossing his car keys on the bedside table. But right as he pulls the blanket up, he hears the unmistakable sound of glass breaking somewhere in the house, followed by this sinister, disembodied laugh. He reaches over to flick on the bedside lamp, but nothing happens. He checks his watch. It's exactly 9 p.m. The scheduled blackout had just hit.
Think about the sheer vulnerability of this situation for a second. Raghav is already a fragile heart patient who barely survived a previous attack. Now he's completely stranded in a pitch-black house, hearing these terrifying sounds. His first human instinct, understandably, is to bolt, run to his car, and speed away. But there's a massive problem. He realizes his car keys are sitting on the bedside table deep inside that dark bedroom.
Gathering every single ounce of courage he possesses, Raghav creeps back into the pitch-black house to grab his keys. As he inches closer to the kitchen, he suddenly feels hot, heavy breathing right against the back of his neck. He turns around and comes face to face with a terrifying figure looming in the dark. The shock is simply too much for his system. Raghav's weak heart gives out, he suffers a massive collapse and drops totally unconscious onto the floor.
So for hours, Raghav is just lying there motionless. But here's where we pivot. Because at 2:50 a.m.,
Just 10 minutes before the power is scheduled to flip back on, Rogov slowly regains consciousness. And as his eyes adjust to the heavy darkness, the true, mind-bending nature of this farmhouse haunting is finally revealed.
Part 4. The Greed and Deception.
Lying there paralyzed in the dark, straining to listen, Raghav realizes something that is absolutely chilling. There were no headless women, there were no ghosts. This entire ordeal, the phantom laughs, the broken glass, the shadowy figures, it was all a meticulously staged theatrical performance. It was a cold-blooded assassination plot, carefully orchestrated with one horrific goal: to literally scare a fragile heart patient to death, leaving zero forensic evidence behind. Still on the floor, Raghav overhears a man whispering on the phone just a few feet away. The man says, "Madam, I could only make him faint. Should I just bury him in the fields?" When Raghav listens closely to the voice, his blood practically freezes. The monster hiding in the dark was Raju. His trusted, innocent caretaker of 10 long years was the one terrorizing him. And worse, the person on the other end of the line was Raghav's very own wife, Mohini. The level of betrayal here is just staggering. What was the price of a decade of loyalty? What did it cost to turn a man who was treated like family into a murderer? 5%. That's it. Mohini had promised Raju a measly 5% cut of the farmhouse property if he successfully staged this fatal scare, helping her inherit Raghav's massive, multi-crore empire.
Part 5. The Master Trick.
Then, the clock strikes 3 a.m. Boom! The electricity department restores the power, and lights flood the entire room. Raghav instantly springs up, grabs a heavy kitchen knife, and presses it right to Raju's throat. But instead of killing him on the spot, Raghav decides to use the exact same weapon they used against him: unadulterated human greed. He forces a terrified Raju to put Mohini on speakerphone. Mohini casually tells Raju she's on her way to collect her prize. Once she hangs up, Raghav stares down his treacherous caretaker and totally flips the script. He counters his wife's offer, promising Raju a 10% cut of the property, double the payout, if Raju kills Mohini the very second she walks through the door.
Part 6. The Ultimate Price.
Raghav looks at Raju and says, "You are just a pawn following the queen's orders, but remember, I am the king." For a grueling hour and a half, the two men just wait in total silence. Finally, a car horn pierces the night. Mohini had arrived, fully expecting to step over her dead husband's body. But the moment she walks inside and starts mocking her allegedly dead husband, Raju steps right up beside her and drives a knife straight through her chest. Without a single second of hesitation, he betrays his co-conspirator, fully believing he had just doubled his payday. As Mohini hits the floor, Raju turns to his boss, literally waiting for his 10% reward. But Raghav just smiles, looks down at the absolute chaos, and drops the ultimate bombshell. "I told you I came here to pack up," Raghav says. He reveals that he had quietly sold the entire farmhouse property a full week prior. The cash was already in his bank account. The property simply wasn't his to give away anymore. Raghav casually gets in his car and drives back to Delhi, leaving Raju completely destroyed, totally empty-handed, and standing over the body of the woman he just murdered. The aftermath of this is just incredibly tragic. Consumed by the overwhelming guilt of murdering his boss's wife and realizing he'd sacrificed a decade of honorable loyalty for literally nothing, Raju soon took his own life. Now, the public and the press, they spun it as this scandalous crime of passion. You know, a servant having an illicit affair with the wealthy wife, but only the quiet whispers within the family eventually brought this hidden truth to light. It was a calculated game of extreme betrayal.
Greed is like sugar. Consume it in limits, or it will destroy you. We're ending this explainer with that chilling reminder because it hits the nail right on the head. The most terrifying monsters out there, they aren't headless ghosts hiding in the dark during a power cut. The true monsters are human beings, driven by a bottomless capacity for greed. It really makes you wonder, what would you do if the people you trusted most turned out to be the monsters in your dark? Think about that for a second. Thanks for hanging out and learning with us today, and we'll see you in the next one.